If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
And how glad you will be.
If you're like
Oh,
me,
it's repeating
and
and
you got
looping.
no life.
But that figures because it's kind of like hard to manage 50 windows at the same time. Okay, so way back in the day, the question came up, do we want music in the background? Such as what I was playing was music from my film score for a movie called Out of Time. I don't know, man. I think it's a bit of a distraction, but, you know, once the yakking is taking place. So, the question becomes, what are we doing today? Actually, quite a bit. Let's transition over to the Vegas screen, and then meanwhile, I will switch on my webcam. Okay. I actually got a good bit done yesterday, basically tightening up animation and doing backgrounds for a later sequence here that involves Raja and Golek. So this is kind of interesting because this is where I have gone ahead and said, let's take a pragmatic approach to AI. And the bottom line is very simple. If AI tools can get me to certain aspects of the production process more efficiently or at a higher quality level, then it's certainly worth a look. So I went ahead and did some prompts and basically replaced the backgrounds that were in there with these. And honestly, I think they look better. I think they transposed into the scene just fine. And that's that. So the question often comes up with, hey Chizyapo, the question often comes up with AI about the nature of the intellectual property. And the basic consensus today would seem to be, obviously you have to look at the terms of whatever platform you're using, but the basic consensus would be that AI generated art is not copyrightable. However, if you modify it, then it is copyrightable. In this case, if I'm using AI to generate backgrounds, then by definition, like in this case, you've got obviously the bed drawn into the scene. You have the character composited into the scene. So everything about this makes it okay for me to use, actually. So what I did modify the art. What I did was I generated the visuals, which actually I can believe I can show you. Here we go. Yeah, so far these are the backgrounds that I've been fiddling with. So they're fairly low resolution. And I gotta say, you know, the AI is, while it generates pretty pictures, it's also pretty remarkably stupid. I mean, I can really specify in the prompt that there is no light shining in the windows, but because it's trained on a data set that seems to really enjoy light shining in windows, it refuses to retreat from having the light shine in the windows. So this is kind of an interesting dilemma because it's like, okay, what do we do? Well, you could paint it back out, which of course would be a bit of a pain. Or you could just adapt your storytelling to say, well, what if the light was shining in the window? The problem is not actually here. The problem is here. Because the initial idea was that and by the way, in the hand-painted background that was in there before, the hallway was dark. Okay? But this is actually a great idea where you get the AI. It's funny because it's making me want to dovetail into it. Okay, I'll dovetail for 1 minute. I'll give myself 1 minute here. When you're in business, especially when you haven't been in business for very long, you think that if you make a mistake, that the client will, they'll fire you or they won't like you anymore or whatever the fear is. In point of fact, it's exactly the opposite. When things go wrong, everyone understands that things go wrong. And so when things go wrong, that's an opportunity to communicate. That's an opportunity to actually galvanize the relationship by owning the problem and then solving it. So we don't want to drift into the evil territory where we deliberately make things go wrong specifically so we can swoop in and save the day. That would be evil. But sometimes stuff goes wrong. So anyway, okay, I kept that to under a minute, so that's good. So what went wrong here was that the AI refused to paint the picture without light shining in. But what I realized was there was one option that was, basically creatively, it makes more sense to have an illuminated hallway. I mean, this is a palatial environment, and so, the hallway is illuminated. So, given that, I decided, maybe this actually is improving the storytelling. So I went with it. And was able to, in this case, not save time because the backgrounds were already done, but certainly, I think, up the quality level a little bit. Now, you would want to note that if you make the backgrounds too either realistic or photographic, then it can kind of snap you out of the show because it looks too good or too different or too photographic compared to the style of the cartoon. In this case, what I did was I generated the relatively low resolution backgrounds. I applied an oil paint effect to them in Krita to make it a little more impressionistic. And, there were a couple other things like some blur and whatnot. And of course, in this shot here, where is it? There it is. I did put a photograph, or a painting, I should say, of Golek on the wall. Well, vanity apparently has no limits in Golek's world. So, let's get to work. The basic issue at hand today is that, well, I will say this. Over the years, I've had a tendency to gravitate from Tahoma 2D back to Krita. I always keep coming back to Krita, right? It does appear to me that that's changing. It does appear that that is changing. It seems to me that, especially looking at this shot I just did a couple days ago, I really like the visual quality here. I definitely like the additional control I have with the plastic tool, and the the caveat would be that it's very, very useful, like I did with the backgrounds actually in these shots. It's very useful to be cutting and pasting from Krita into Tahoma 2D. But at the end of the day, for the animation itself, so far I seem to really be doing better work and having more of a good time working with Tahoma. So that's where I'm at today. Hey, brother, right back at you, Snowfix Art Tutorials. Never seen you here before. So thank you for visiting. Are you, I guess I'll just divert here for a moment. Are you pretty much up on what is going on here, or do you want me to do the 30-second recap of what this channel's even, about? So just post in the comment, give me an overview or something like that, or if you post nothing at all, I'll just keep moving forward. And by the way, the chirping sound you hear in the background is Zuko, the African gray parrot, who is pretty chill today, but he's chirping a little bit. Okay, so anyway, working with Tahoma, pretty happy with the results. Now right here, and by the way, to be clear, I am going to have to divert back to Krita because the source material for the first shot I'm going to be working on is from Krita. So here we've got a pretty decent rendering of Tobias. And then something went absolutely to pot. And this was quite a while ago, because as you guys probably know, I released the first 2 episodes of this show. Oh, golly, it's been at least 18 months ago since it's been out there on the market and whatever. And so as I'm diving in here to episode 3, there are some things that were done kind of a long time ago that I'm going, okay, that looks like Tobias. This looks completely stupid. What was I thinking that day? I have no idea. So based on that, this shot is going to get redone. And the quickest solution, clearly, would be actually to cut and paste the group of layers that comprise Tobias here. Just cut them into this scene. So what we need to do, let's go ahead and let me go to OBS and let's jump over to Krita, kill the animation Truman Show introduction. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to open the shot of Tobias, which would be 0306. So episode 306, right there. And it's a Krita, as I figured it would be. And what we see is that Tobias is, he's got a lot of layers. He's got a lot of layers. Okay, but that's perfect. That's what we wanted. Let's see if there's any animation baked in there. It looks it's probably just lip sync, actually. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I like that picture of Tobias, and I might as well open 3.8 at the same time. Yep, it's a Krita as well. So we'll open that. And like I said, I'm not sure what was going on this day, why I allowed myself to really botch the characterization on this guy, but there it is. So let's take Tobias out for a moment. What we see is that animation's not horrible. Arguably, actually, this is kind of a strong point. Now that I think about it, this should be tried. It may not work, but it should be tried. What should be tried? Let's just replace this frame so that the characterization is correct. And then when it starts to transition, I would assume just because of sort of like, not motion blur, but the quick animation, the profile is not too bad. It could probably use a little tweaking, but it's okay. The profile is okay from a characterization standpoint. So we should probably swap in the overall picture of Tobias, and then we will see if we want to redo this stuff. Okay. Everything else about it looks pretty good. So in the first frame of Tobias, let's see, how do we want to approach this? Why don't we kill the background first? Let's kill this guy. Not kill him, obviously, but okay, because this is a tricky operation. Generally speaking, let's assume that the color and shadows and stuff on this layer are okay. So here's how we're going to protect ourselves a little bit. I'm going to duplicate this massive group, and then I'm going to merge this group. Okay, why did I do that? Okay, so now I've got umpteen quadzillion layers here that comprise Tobias's animation, and I could always come back to it if I have to. So for now, we shut it off. Now what we have, and by the way, let's make sure this is pinned to the timeline. I'm going to have to look into the preferences. If anybody in the comments knows, or in the chat, is there an option to tell Krita to always, by default, put a new layer, pin it to the timeline? Because there is basically no scenario where I have stuff going on over here that I don't want to be seeing over here. Just saying. Okay, so now what we have is we have this copy, and what I'm going to do is make it easier to see by typing a big fat Tobias. Okay, so now we have a flat layer of Tobias, and we could easily replace just certain frames and we would be fine. Okay, so now the quickest solution to our little dilemma that we had would be to do the same thing over here. Let's just assume that whatever's in this shot is probably okay. And I'm going to merge this group. Okay, so now keep in mind, this means that I will not be saving this Krita file because we're just stealing this layer, copy layer, from this shot to put it into this shot. Paste layer, and I'm going to say this probably wants to be right here. Yep, there we go. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do, you know, I don't want to think too much here, so I'm going to go ahead and kill this without saving it, so I don't, because what will happen is I'll come back to this an hour from now, or after I've done a bunch of work on this shot. I'll come back to this one and go, oh, I never saved it, and I'll save it forgetting that I damaged it irreparably, and the last thing I would actually want to do is save it. Okay, so now what we have is we've got the first few frames of Tobias, and I'm going to go to this little frame right here and hit Control-Shift-X, and now he is gone. Okay, but we still see him doing the turn here. Obviously the color on his hair and stuff is wrong, but I think we can compensate for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this layer that we just put in there. I'm going to hit the tilde key, which for me isolates the current layer. That would be this menu option, isolate active layer. Very handy because then I can jump between levels or groups or anything, even if they're turned off like this is. And when I click on them, I'll see them in isolation. Okay, so now what we want to do is, actually let's not isolate him. Let's take, and by the way, let's close this group, and we'll call this group Soldier, just so we don't forget. Save our work, save early, save often, that's the rule. So now the main thing we need to do now is get the sizing correct. So let's go add a transform mask. Okay, we don't need to animate this. The reason I'm using a transform mask, you might be wondering, okay, well, why don't you just transform the layer? Why don't you just move it? Well, the problem is if I move the layer of Tobias here, then I will only be moving the first frame. And then when it gets to this frame or after, he will still be in the initial position. I would have to be moving him in exactly the same way in every individual keyframe. You know, to tell you the truth, I said a long time ago, before we had transform masks in Krita, my opinion was that the standard animate tool, or you know, the transform tool, should have the ability, like a little button here. I still think it's a good idea. Have a little button that says, okay, whatever you do as far as a transformation, remember all the settings so that when you go to use the transform tool again, it repeats the exact same transform you did a moment ago. That's how the filters work. If you do any filter and then you just click Control F, apply filter again, it'll apply that filter again with the same last settings that you use. If we had that feature in Krita, just remembering what you did, you would never have actually needed the transform masks. Actually, you wouldn't need them. Now you'd have a little more work to do because you're going to go through every single one of these frames and go click, 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 but it would achieve the result. So anyway, just kind of throwing that out there. The thing with the transform mask is this is just going to be a permanent movement of the entire layer and all of its keyframes. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to scale them down a little bit, like so, and then move them over here. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and scale them back up a bit because we do have a little bit of a problem there at the bottom edge, which of course we could paint it in, but for now I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient than that. Okay, so I guess as far as rants go, I must say I am still looking for a slight improvement in Krita where it actually uses idle CPU cycles to cache the animation, because right now, even with the latest version, you will still see it happen where I've got animated frames in here, and if I just scrub them, it won't animate. once I scrub them, it'll go, oh, you want to scrub. And then it will go ahead and start caching the animation. But obviously that's silly. It should be doing it in the background. So it shouldn't wait for me to have it fail to do its job to wake up and go, oh, I should do my job. That's obviously very silly. So just throwing that out there too. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to say, let's take this layer, turn this off, go here, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this Tobias and put it on top. And the reason I'm going to put it on top is so I can see the sizing, because I think I actually need to just kind of do the opposite. I need to add a transform mask to this layer and just scale it down a little bit, and that will probably get me to where I need to be. Now, again, I do have a bit of a problem, and the problem being there's part of his shoulder missing here. That I'm going to live with for now. Okay, so what I described a moment ago, you can see right now. I'm scrubbing the animation and nothing's animating. And you might say, well, that's insane, right? It's crazy to think that you've got an animation program and yet you scrub and the frames don't animate? What? Yeah. But Krita's always been that way. Now, if I stop scrubbing, there it goes. See? Once I needed it to happen, then it realized, oh, you need it to happen, which means that caching the animation and being ready to rock is always, always, always late with Krita. In other words, it always gets it wrong, which is not cool, but there it is. So I'm just throwing it out there because, as you guys know, it has been my habit over the years to rant a little bit when I see features that are just stuff that's ridiculous. Like what I just described is ridiculous because it's been that way since version 4, for crying out loud. Ever since there's been animation in Krita, it has not appropriately cached the animation frames, ever. Which is just nuts, but there you go. Well, I think the reason is there's probably there's like 4 people. There's me, there's Ed Tadeo. There's like 7 people on the planet that are actually using Krita for, any credible level of animation, right? Very few people are doing it. So obviously I can totally respect the fact that the marketplace demand, to fix things like that is pretty low. Now, maybe there's, I gotta say, I should talk to Hala, because it could be if I send Hala a bounty. Maybe there's bounties out there. Does anybody know about that? Are there like bounties associated with Krita development? That would be kind of cool. I mean, if that was truly fixed, I would probably be willing to pay, I don't know. I hate to throw a number out. Actually, it would be really foolish of me to throw a number out publicly, so I'm not going to do it. But, okay, so what we need to do, and I am thinking while I'm working on this. So what I need to do is turn this one off. Let's turn both of the transform masks off. And this frame is obviously deleted, so we don't see it until frame, 4 or 5? I guess it's 4. 0 index. So I guess this could be turned back on. What I'm trying to get at here is, yeah, this would be the place to work on it. Okay, this is where a transform mask without keyframes associated with it is really kind of cool. Yeah, because you can go to any frame and kind of tweak it, get it dialed in. So I'm thinking this should be something like that. Let's see if that kind of works. Now with this in here, I should be able to play it and have it look about right. Okay. Why did he jump? That's a little creepy and looked like a bug to me, but the question was, why did he jump right there? Well, I guess it was just his positioning. Okay, so fine. That's fine. This is the layer we're trying to work with. And what we want to do is delete this frame and delete this frame. Okay, and then this Tobias merged, I don't, I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to duplicate this layer, get rid of the transform, well, yeah, let's get rid of the transform mask. In fact, let me rethink that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge, I'm going to flatten this layer. So I'm going to bake the transform mask into it. There's no reason not to. Okay, so that makes everything simple. If I'm pretty sure this guy's where he's supposed to be, then I might as well bake in the transform mask there as well, which is done in this case by flattening the layer. If it was a group, then it would be merge group. But if it's only one or two layers or a layer with a transform mask, it's flattened layer. They do the same thing, basically. Okay, so now that we've got these flattened, all we have to do is get the, and Krita just blew up. Okay, guys, so this is a great example of yet another just amazing example of why I've been gravitating back more to Tahoma 2D. What I probably should have done is just copied these frames one by one into Tahoma. It would have taken 15 minutes to copy exactly all the frames I needed from Krita into Tahoma, but I wouldn't have had a blow up. So now what's happened is I've lost, you know, several minutes of work, and kind of the work that requires a good bit of thinking, you know what I mean? Because I'm thinking about organizing the layers and flattening this and transforming that. So yet again, you know, here we are 5 years later. Now the autosave file, I'm going to trust that maybe the autosave saved my butt in this case. Close. Okay, so let me eat my words to a small extent, because the fact that there is an autosave file and that it kind of sort of worked is pretty cool. So forgive my rant, Krita. Okay, so what we're going to do, now I have to regroup here a bit. This guy, okay, so what I'm wondering here is, why is the transform mask seeming to do nothing? Oh, I see why. Because this is, okay, we have transform masks that appear to be doing nothing. Okay. So now this is unfortunate, guys, because it means that you, my beloved audience, have to sit here and watch me really struggle with things that just aren't working, and I have to figure out why and either fix them or find another approach, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so yeah, dyslexia moment for sure. I'm going to get rid of this transform mask and save the scene just to... Okay, this is autosave, I see. Okay, so is this 3.8 that I was working on? It is 3.8. Cool. Okay, so the Tobias that we like is on top, and the Tobias that we don't like as well is on the bottom. And it appears that whatever I did with the transform masks is gone. Okay, that's okay. Let's just say we want to leave it here. Okay? Then let's just redo the work right now. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a transform mask, move him over here, probably shrink him a little bit. Something like that. I'm not even going to think about this. I am going to flatten this layer immediately, and then I'm going to save my work. And by the way, just to be clear, one of the most fertile sources of bugs in Krita for the last 5 years has been the transform masks. I don't know how long the transform masks have been in the program. It's at least 3 years for sure. And it's perennially been a great way to make your program blow up and cause you to lose work. So it's a very useful tool, but one to be used cautiously. Or I should say defensively would be a better word. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is back to what I did before, and I'm going to keep saving like at every turn just to be safe here. Okay, so now what I'm trying to do is take this guy and get him aligned with where Tobias would have to be when he turns his head. Okay, so now let's go ahead and hope the software does not explode. Let's flatten the layer. So I'm baking in these transformations every time. Now we can start thinking about a couple things. Number one, we can delete certain frames so that these two animations flow into each other. Okay, so now this frame for sure I want to get rid of. So kill that. And then the idea would be that you're flowing from this to this. You know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. There's some things I'd kind of like to do with, like his beard needs to be extended, for example. There's just a few things that need to happen here. So that's cool, though. Save. So now what caused us to have the explosion... Okay, I'm going to actually change the name here. I'm going to call this Good Tobias. I'm going to call this Bad Tobias. The reason I'm doing that is that I don't want to have to be a dyslexic who's constantly trying to remember what's on top and what's on the bottom and why. I know that sounds completely bizarre, and if you're not dyslexic, it is bizarre. If you are dyslexic and things are always being flipped and reversed in your head, then it makes perfect sense. In other words, I don't have to think about this in terms of which one's on top or bottom anymore. All I have to think about is I know this is the good one. The one that looks good is the good one, and the one that looks not as good is the bad one. Crazy but true, folks. Crazy but true. Okay. Okay, so now all of this... Yeah, everything from here on over might as well be thrown out. It's basically all voiceover. Lip sync, I should say, in animation parlance. Okay. There's a little change of the eyebrows right there, so I got to make a little decision here. I have to look at the script and see what's... Okay, so he says Highness Tianara cannot get far in the forest at night.
You needn't worry. Tianara cannot get far in the forest at night.
Okay, so then he's scowly, and then Tobias turns. Okay, I got you. Okay, cool. By the way, I should probably turn on the preview so that when I'm on that screen, you guys can actually see what's going on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, and look, I just lost a concurrent viewer because of that mistake. Ah! Okay, so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one here, put it there, save my work, save. Okay. Then this frame needs to be, poof, deleted. There is actually a turn frame there, so that means this needs to go here, this needs to go here, and now let's kind of see what we've got. Okay, save our work. Okay, now the objective is to get the lighting to match. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, you see how much longer his face is. So the real, I mean, I'm going to do this kind of one clunk at a time, but this may be where we find out, was it a good idea to even try to make this work, or should I have pretty much just redone the scene from scratch? Let's find out. First thing let's do, by the way, save. I'm just going to take my liquefy tool, and I just want to stretch this a little bit. Okay? Not quite enough. That's better. If I can get the lighting to match, it'll work out pretty well. I'm feeling a little bit wanting to pull that way. Okay, that'll work. So now the problem is, okay, I'm about to show you guys a trick that's kind of useful. What I'm going to do, I'm going to save my work again, because at this point, since Krita has already blown up once today, I do not trust it. Not at all. Okay, so now you think about this. We got a little characterization change, right? I'm about to stretch his head. The problem is two things. Number one, if I use a transform mask with liquefy, that can work. However, Krita is notorious for crashing when you try to use a transform mask with liquefy. So, I don't want to do that. That's dangerous. So if I want to use liquefy to fix this characterization here by stretching his face a bit, like I did last time, the problem is I'm going to have to do the exact same stretch on every single one of these frames, which is, by definition, impossible. So here's what we're going to do. Let's go here. Okay. Let's go to the frame where we're going to have to do this little stretch. And as you can see, it takes a second for Krita's animation cache to wake up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these frames, I'm actually going to pop them into this layer, and then what we'll do is we'll use an erase layer to hide everything except his mouth. That way, once we change this image here, this image will propagate underneath all of these, and so then all we have to do is just erase everything but his mouth, and all of a sudden the lip sync will be restored. And if we wanted to, we could even actually merge the layers at that point. So I'm going to, okay, I guess we can't double click that. So we'll call this Tobias lip sync. Okay, so now we're good to go. We just need to do the liquefy thing here, and hopefully just this little stretch. I'm moving it around until it feels like it looks like Tobias, basically. Yeah, that's not too bad. Not too bad. I would say this one could even be stretched again a little bit more. Not much. And this one, probably about like that, I think. That feels pretty smooth. Okay. Any comments, criticisms, blah, blah, blah in the chat? Feel free to chime in. Okay, so now let me show you how we're going to do this. Let's save this. Turn this back on. All right. And when we go here, as you can see, you've got two versions of Tobias overlaid against each other. So what I'm going to do is take this one that's the lip sync, hit Control G to put it in a group. Then I'm going to add a layer over top of it, hit the B key, use my big old Conan brush, and this layer is going to be in erase mode. And what that's going to do, actually we can hang on, just so you guys know, dyslexia moment, complete dyslexia moment. I just realized that I had turned off the wrong layer, and I've got to think about what's above what else. What's on the top, what's on the bottom. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, but that's the way it is. So I never actually realized in my younger days, I didn't realize how dyslexic I was. Animating has definitely helped me to discover how dyslexic I am. Okay, so now as long as we're here, maybe what we could do, let's make some adjustments here as well, as long as we're here. First of all, I guess we should save our work. What I'm going to do is, you can see that the oh, I don't know what you'd call it, the regalia that he's wearing is, this has really got to be, okay, stop everything, stop everything. Wrong tool there, friend. A key, liquefy. All right. So now what I want to do is shrink the brush a bit. And what we're going to do is just basically just kind of wing it, truthfully. I mean, remember, he is in motion here, right? So that gives us some latitude. So let's go back one frame. Much better. Okay, again, there's basically one layer of shadow missing in this stuff. Okay, let's go to the good Tobias here while we're thinking about it. And let's just correct this little glitch. Cool. We're set. Now let's go here and just make sure this feels good. Okay, stop everything. I'm seeing that I made a correction on Tobias and then that correction disappeared. Okay, I see why, obviously. There are 2 frames, so yes. This is it, folks. We're going to take the chance of saying, yeah, I think I can do it twice pretty much the same way, even though that's pretty much impossible. Okay, it's okay that there's that slight, actually, I'm going to even exaggerate it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's kind of get that movement going because the very next frame is going to be that. So that's going to flow into itself pretty well. So let's go here, and then what we want to do here is kind of follow what's happening. Yeah, there we go. That's starting to look better, isn't it? Okay, this could actually be stretched. Nice. Okay, and I think this could even go further, frankly. So somebody asked the other day about vectors and essentially the idea of losing fidelity when you are using pixels as opposed to vectors, because obviously vectors can be scaled to any size and basically still look sharp. In practice, what you find is that the liquefy tool, especially if you're using it to like this, where you're using it for animation, the blurring that occurs, which is definitely a thing. Look how blurry that is. The thing is, it's in motion, so it doesn't matter. You don't see the blur. So, not a big deal. And in the rare instance where it actually is more of a big deal, what you can do is just add a very gentle, unsharp mask to the blurred lines, especially if you've got it broken up into layers and you can do the unsharp masking only on the ink layer, then you can sharpen it right up, no problem. And it's just not an issue. You know, it's just not an issue. People think it's an issue. You know, we'll leave it at that. Okay, so now we need to deal with the shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge this group, and then I'm going to merge with the layer below. So now Bad Tobias has his lip sync baked in, and basically everything's working. Now what we need to do, let's save our work. So now what I'm going to do is put Bad Tobias back in his own group, specifically so that we can add this shadow layer. Okay, so let's just make a black brush. We'll use, again, our Conan brush. For those who wonder what the hell a Conan brush is, feel free to ask if you're interested, and I'll explain it. Otherwise, I'm not going to. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a keyframe. That's kind of important. And now let's just look here. Yes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to keep this really simple and loose. And I'm well aware that there are, you know, Tobias's left shoulder does still need to be fixed. So, yes, I am aware of that. All right. Then what we'll do is we'll just scale this down, or turn this down. until it feels right. Very close. Very close. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on, for those who are wondering, that little icon right there is alpha lock, and that means that because these are in a group together, see, I can scribble and the it will not paint outside of the lines. So it's constrained to the layers that are below it when you turn on alpha lock. Very, very handy, friends. Very, very handy indeed. Okay, so now there's that. Question. If I click, is it going to create a new keyframe? Yes. Excellent. There are some things about Krita that have been a little winky and questionable, but for the most part, I must say, despite the crash today, for the most part, the latest version of Krita has been the most stable I probably have worked with. You know, it's been really pretty darn good. So, for all my ranting, in the voice of Tobiah, I say, for all my ranting, it really is quite a respectable application. Okay, so now we're going to take this, we're going to merge the group. Now that's a risky behavior because what if I need to wind up tweaking something in the color correction? Let's find out. That's fine. It's fine, friends. It's looking good. Okay, one thing I would like to do is I would like to move this one frame over, make a duplicate with Control Insert, and actually on Good Tobias, I would like to give him one eye blink right here. So I'm going to shrink down the old Conan brush, and we're going to make this real simple, friends. We're just going to go like that. We're just going to give that guy a nice little eye blink. Anytime somebody's turning their head, they actually do blink, or they tend to, that's for sure. So it gives a slight feeling of life to the animation, maybe. It's pretty subtle, admittedly. But let's save our work. Save. Yeah, see, that worked. Easy peasy, right? Now, you could take it further, honestly, folks. For example, if he's gonna, okay, so yeah, here he moved a little. Let's look at the shoulder situation. We might as well take it to the next level if we can. Okay, so right here, we might as well do one more little instance of liquefy. I have to say, by the way, because this is a single layer. This isn't even like, I'm not doing liquefy on a group, and it's dogging it pretty good, which says to me liquefy is probably a little bit less performant in this version of Krita, it appears to me, than in previous versions, and I have noticed that on my laptop as well. So I've got a laptop that it's, you know, it's like a 32 core, pretty state-of-the-art laptop, and even it struggles a bit here and there with liquefy. Okay, so is this movement a little heavy-handed, perhaps? Let's turn on the onion skins and decide. Yep, I think it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split the difference. See, yeah, okay, there we go. So what's difficult is, because what's liquefy's doing is it's waiting for me to move my mouse until it's enough to tell it to go ahead and do something, and then it does what it just did right there, and then it does too much. So that's what I mean by dogging it. It's not very performant, and then when it wakes up and finally performs, it says, oh, I guess I need to catch up and do please do explain. I don't know what you're telling me to explain, or if that's just a joke, Chiziapo. So if there's something you do want me to explain, tell me what it is, because I'm kind of moving too fast and can't remember what I said 45 seconds ago. All right. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, let's save our work. Poof. Let's turn off the onion skins. And now what we need to do is punch up Tobias a bit here. In this layer. Okay, yeah, so this is actually a good example of where the merging was a bad idea. Because what I need to do now, I need to do over top of like the whole thing. So let's do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to go insert. And then this is going to be a little clunky, folks, so you're going to have to bear with me. The first thing I'm going to do is hit my eraser. Okay, I hit my eraser and then it doesn't erase. It did the opposite. Okay. Get rid of these erroneous lines. Okay. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through. I'm just going to get rid of the erroneous lines first of all. The only reason I'm using another layer is because once we get to... Actually, you know what the way to do this? This is what I should do. I should go, okay, so I see that we have a little glitch here in Krita's layout. In that, oh, guys, I'm bumping into stuff today that's reminding me of why I've been favoring Tahoma. Not for painting. I mean, for painting, you can't be Krita. But anyway, here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a rectangular selection like that. And then I'm going to hit delete. Watch this. Delete, and then just keep going to each of the next frames and delete, 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 delete. Okay, peasy, easy peasy, right? Okay, Control-Shift-A turns off the selection, and now what I can do is go up into this frame and just basically wing it. Here, I'm going to grab this color and just say, okay, that would be there. I'm going to grab this color and say this would be kind of something like this. And that's probably going to be perfectly fine. Okay? So then this, that's interesting. Okay, my apologies, folks. I just had a stupid attack and did the classic mistake, the classic Krita mistake, which is I just made all of my corrections in the wrong layer. I've done that at least 550 trillion times over the years. I seem to love doing it. And I'm trying to lighten this up to get this to where it actually looks kind of right-ish. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the correction I just made that did look pretty good wasn't supposed to be made in this layer. It was supposed to be made in this layer. And another thing with Krita that's always been the case is that it looks like it might be better in this version, the latest version, where you get a disconnect between what you click and select here versus what you click and select in the timeline versus what you click and select here. They traditionally have not remained completely synced. Okay, so for now what I'm going to do is just put something on that layer. And then here, did it create a keyframe? It did not. Okay, great example of what I'm talking about. I actually just illustrated exactly what I was just talking about. Look at what just happened. I clicked here in the timeline. Any fool using any software for the last 20 years would say, if I click in this row, then I must be operating in this row. Nope, not in Krita. In Krita, and there's probably, I don't want to be too snarky here, there may be a damn good reason for this. I just don't know. I don't know. I could ask Hala on the Krita Artists Forum. That's the lead developer for Krita. But anyway, for some reason, it's not good enough to click here. You have to click here and explicitly select the layer. Then these two sync up. You've selected it over here. And you might say, well, Dave, doesn't that give you a clue? Because if you're here, but you click here and you don't see the whole screen flash because it jumped up to this layer, that's kind of a warning, right? And you'd be correct. It is a warning. I missed it, but yeah, I mean, it's a warning. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Conan brush. Seem to be loving the Conan brush today. And now you can see we did create a keyframe. We are in the correct layer. Oh, thank goodness. And what I'm going to do, I know there's a shadow bit there that's going to have to be worked out. So just patient, patient, patient. All right, let's zoom in so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And this is not, to me, this type of work right here, it's a little tedious, but it's not a problem. I mean, the whole thing takes a couple minutes, and you can usually implement some pretty darn good fixes really fast if you're willing to just do a little simple painting. Okay, and then in this case, I want to lower this to something like that, and I guess what I want is, what I'm really looking for is this color, more or less. It's like a really dark charcoal kind of thing. It's not quite black. So I'm going to go ahead and just get that in there, like so. That's looking pretty good, friends. Okay, save my work. All right, what's going on over here about the brush? Please do explain about the brush. Oh, about the Conan brush. Yeah, okay, got it. It's real simple. When I was looking at John Buscema's Savage Sword of Conan, issue 68, from about 1980, probably 3. I used to have a really thick stack of Savage Swords of Conan Savage Sword of Conan that spanned about probably at least several years. Anyway, so I was always a Buscema guy. Buscema was my guy when it came to comic book art. So I wanted to create a brush that did a good job of emulating John Buscema's inking style. And so that's what this brush is. It's a very simple brush. There's nothing particularly fancy about the brush. It's just got a nice feel to it, right? It looks very much like the inking that Buscema did on his own pencils, which he rarely did. If you make it really thick, now you're getting into Joe Sinnott territory, which Joe Sinnott was the guy that, as you can kind of see right here, Sinnott was the guy who inked Jack Kirby, right, on Fantastic Four. So let's make a real cheese ball Jack Kirby type thing, right? So it's just a comic book inking brush, basically. And so I thought it'd be fun when I created the brush to give it an icon of Conan. So that's the story behind that. Silly, silly, silly things we do in order to entertain ourselves, such as speaking in the voice of one of the characters from our show. Yeah, so back to work. Okay, so we've touched up that. And it looks like I completed it. I didn't even believe it. I thought I had one more to go. Awesome. Save our work. Okay, so now let's put this soldier guy back in. I'm sorry. By the way, I've got 4 concurrent viewers. I'm just curious. Does anybody know? I should know this. I know I should know this, but I have not been able to figure out over the last few days, like, what this does. Like, this row of boxes that you can check, I have literally no idea what it does. I have no idea why it's there. Not a clue. Now, it looks like this is active. Okay, so now this is interesting, actually. Stop everything. When I grab this, or maybe grab a frame, nothing happens over here. So that's what I was talking about before I was complaining about it. In my opinion, if I click in a row, that commensurate layer should become active to receive input. But that's my opinion, and as I said, there may be a good reason why it doesn't do that. Krita has never done that. However, it looks like when I select a row, it becomes checked. So what that says to me is there's some benefit or idea surrounding the idea of checking multiple layers. Why would you do that? Anybody know? Because over here now you've got 3 layers selected, which I could totally see where maybe there's a reason for that. For example, if I hit Control G right now, it probably will group all of them. You know? Yep. That's what it did. However, I don't think that, I mean, I think that's always been true if you grab a group, and I mean, if you grab several layers and hit Control G, you're going to group all of them. But I'm just curious, what the heck is that just a visual aid? If it's a visual aid, why would you be able to click it? So the only reason you would click it is so that you can specifically select multiple layers at one time. To do what, I wonder? It could be. Okay, so if I hit Shift, if I hit Shift and click on the layer name, then it does the same thing. I'm wondering if what that's for, it's probably for doing frame by frame hard-coded things like filters and whatnot, where you can grab multiple. Like if I hit Control M right now and make a change, I'll bet, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's what's going on. I don't think it is. I was going to say, I bet what happens is it'll apply this to all 3 layers, but that does not appear to be the case, because you can see right there clearly that there's one layer that is not being affected. So I don't know. I don't get it, folks. If anybody has a clue, put it in the comments or the chat. I'd love to know why we have this, you know, feature or whatever. Okay, so that's the touch up, and I told you that the touch up was satisfactory. Frankly, I'm thinking we go Control E. I think that's it. I think we're done with Tobias. He's been merged. I'm going to save my work. This is the initial version of Tobias, and as far as I'm concerned, we can delete it. There's no reason to keep it around once we know that we're definitely not going to use it. So let's put the soldier back in and kind of see what we have. All right, this, by the way, was just the color key. So I'm going to turn, where's the color key? Okay, I haven't looked at this shot in quite a while, and so here is a layer up, pencil test. Okay, so let's get rid of that. There's no reason to keep that around. Hand. So I'm looking at the animation. Oh, that's his hand coming up to salute. Got it. Okay, the only thing I would really object to here probably is that I think that the shading looks good on Tobias and it's kind of lacking on this guy. I think he needs one more layer as well. Okay, so this group would appear to be the hand. So I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to save my work and I'm just going to merge this group. Merge the group in order to see. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, if I turn this group off, I bet you the saluting hand disappears. Okay, cool. So now I know what I've got. So this is the salute hand. And so now what we've got is the soldier's multiple layers, and what we need to do is add an extra layer here. And go back to the beginning. Yeah, because we are going to have to animate it. So this is going to be, we'll call this tint shadow, or tint SHD. I'm going to go to this frame on this layer, insert a keyframe, hit the B key, and we're already using our Conan brush. Let's just, basically what we're trying to do here is just get the soldier, get his tint to be kind of more similar to Tobias's. That looks about right to me. Okay, so yeah. So then when he gets here, we can just go poofity poof. And here. Okay, so now it'll be interesting to see how the hand plays, because obviously, well, I guess it would be under the shadow anyway. That's perfect. I mean, I said it's perfect. It's actually not perfect because, let's see. I'm going to say, let's do control insert here. So I'm not making a brand new frame. I don't want to make a brand new frame. Same thing here. I'm just trying to get this adjusted. Just add a little bit, and I think we're in shape, in good shape. We're good to go. Do we want to give back a little highlight here? I think so, friends. I think so. Cool. All right, I have a little bit of an issue with this. And by the way, for those who are complaining out there, I'm sorry that I'm working at a pretty small screen size there, obviously, which is fine for me, but then it just occurred to me that that may make it hard for you guys to see what the hell I'm actually doing. So, all right, cool. Save our work and render. This is 308. Yep, that'll work. Let's run with that. Anything else going on out there, guys? Anything in the world of chit-chat and anything? Okay, so now I'm going back to here, and in this shot right here, this should be the one that just updated. Yeah, okay. So let's see what we have.
Let's regroup at dawn.
Sir. Okay, for sure the edit is a little bit lacking in terms of pace. So he's sulking.
Let's regroup at dawn.
Sir. Right there. It should end right there. There's no reason for it to continue after he salutes. So this should be dragged back here. Control Shift F. And unfortunately that moved the voices. So what I'm going to do instead is drag this to here and then hit Control Shift F. Okay, that ripple edited it. Okay, let's back up a little bit and kind of see what we have in this shot for a bit here.
Who's Luka? The orphan, Highness. We chased him off that campsite, but there was no sign of the princess.
He was acting suspicious, though.
Sir, it's Luka. When does he ever not act suspicious?
Fair point, I suppose.
Highness, you needn't worry. Tianara cannot get far in the forest at night.
I need to put in some voice there for Vespar.
Let's regroup at dawn.
Sir.
Okay, so now let's look at what
Managing troops is just slowing us down. We need a better plan.
Okay, right there. That's wrong. Okay, so we need a better plan is deleted. I may use some of the visuals here for the shot. But yes, okay. So what we need to do here, friends, is we need to grab this and this. Okay, that's not going to really work. If you're mystified, what I'm looking at right here is basically the ripple editing. We have a bit of ambiguity about what we're trying to do. I think that if I move this downstream here, that will do the trick. Yes, it did. And that's because when I move this, these audio tracks were underneath it, so it included it in the ripple edit. So that's good. I need to move this further downstream though, actually. Control Shift F. Okay. So now I need to refer back to my script, and what actually takes place is he says let's regroup at dawn.
Let's regroup at dawn.
Sir. And he's sulking.
Managing troops is just slowing us down. We need a better plan.
Okay, and we need a better plan is what needs to be removed. Okay, so just slowing us down. We'll take this out. But by the way, most of these voices were recorded directly into the timeline with this microphone that I'm using right now, which is a headset. So all the voices are actually going to wind up being re-recorded. But I've just been recording stuff into Vegas to, for something
Managing troops is
to edit against.
managing troops is just slowing us down.
Okay, so yeah, I think we could take this and find something in here
Just slowing us down.
that will work.
It's just slowing us down.
Okay. Just let me.
Troops is just slowing us down.
Yeah, what I want to do is go.
It's just slowing us down.
Is I want to end this shot before he finishes talking, because that makes for smoother edits, makes things kind of move along better. It's certainly arguable that this little sulking moment lasts too long, but let's see. Let's go back a little further.
I suppose.
Just want to
Highness,
get the
you
feeling
needn't
here.
worry. Tianara cannot get far in the forest at night.
Let's regroup at dawn.
Because we already saw that
Sir.
attitude a moment ago.
Managing troops is just slowing us down.
Actually, in this case, I think maybe I'll take it.
Managing troops is just slowing us down.
Okay, so now what we want to do is switch to Tobias, and Tobias chuckles and says,
I agree they're slowing you down, Your Highness.
so might as well put that in there.
I agree they're slowing you down, Your Highness. I agree they're slowing you down, Your Highness.
I didn't like the way I said Your Highness. Oh, come on.
I agree they're slowing you down, Your Highness. I agree they're slowing you down, Your Highness.
Okay, if we put a smile on his face a little bit, that will probably do the trick. So now what we need to do is we need to see Tobias. I don't feel like I want to go for a bunch of reuse here. I'm kind of ready to start something new. So I'm going to put this on the screen for reference. And so this is what I'm looking at on my other screen. And then let's go back to Krita. We can obviously save our work here. Close this up. We'll leave Krita open because we may want to use it for some paint or something that's going to wind up being cut and pasted into Tahoma. But I would say Tahoma is where we want to be at this point. Okay. Do we have any shots of Tobias? That are Tahoma shots is what I'm sort of thinking out loud here. Let's go to the browser. And let's go to... Okay, that's fascinating. Okay, scenes. And I'm just scanning to see if, in terms of the thumbnails, if we have any good shots of Tobias, recently. It looks like it's going to be taking a long time to come up with the thumbnails, so I would say this is a exercise in nonsense. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start moving here. It's supposed to be the bottom of the nose, actually, not the mouth. The mouth would be more like there, I think. Mm-hmm. His head is growing. Okay, I'm gonna just keep an eye on the chat for the moment. I'm not gonna even think about characterization at the moment. I just wanna get the movement kinda sorta in the zone. Okay, and I would say that the whole thing is too big, actually. Yep, the whole thing's too big. That sucks. I do that all the time, though. I literally do that all the time. I would have to say that probably 9 times out of 10, if I start animating freely, I'll wind up having to do this that I'm doing right now. So I want him to be kind of flanking the rule of thirds, I guess. Let's put the tip of his, where his hair meets on his forehead, let's put that right on the rule of thirds. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely always wind up having to do this. Okay, so now this is a little problematic. Let's turn on the onion skins. That would help. Okay, yeah, cool. That's definitely helpful. Okay, so we can take that there. And yeah, this will whoop it into shape a little bit. Now what I want to do is just stretch this to see if it's coming out about right. That feels about right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I need to save my work. So let's save this. What would this be? This would be shot. Okay, we've got 3-11 down here. So this would have to be 3-10B is what that would be. Okay, so file, save, and this would be scenes. Okay, I need to put this in episode 03. Okay, that says it's invalid, so this is the kind of thing I need to really just gotta be careful of. Like, is there a dash in it? Is there an underscore? You know, what's the actual name of the folder? That's like absolutely critical. Okay, it's episode -03. Okay, so then what we're gonna do is call this 03. So I need to remember that. That's why I'm saying it out loud, actually, guys. I'm saying it out loud in order to force myself to remember. It is episode -03. Okay, B. This would be 3-10-B. And that's because it falls in between the original 3-10 and 3-11. Okay? So we save that, but then what we need to do is go to our output settings, and I used to know how to do this. I don't remember how to do it. It's been a couple of years since I've really spent a lot of time with Tahoma, and I don't know how to get it to remember that every single time I create a new scene in this project, I do not want this absolutely nonsensical default for outputs. In fact, what I want is it's actually going to be maybe back in the day all I did was just cut and paste. I don't know. So this needs to be episode-03 dash, and then that's the folder name, and I've never once ever in my life used TIFF for output, ever. Never have, never will. One could perhaps argue there's some performance advantage. I don't know. The other thing is, I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think I need to have the period there in the file name. Nope, 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 nope. It looks to me like it put in double periods, and it looks like it then took it out here. So that's interesting. So just to get reacclimated here, I need to go into, let's go to our favorites, which would be episode 3. Let's go to the 0-3, or I'm sorry, 03-010B. And okay, now this is interesting. There is no folder 03-10B. Okay? So now what we have to do is we have to ferret out, okay, why did we tell Tahoma exactly what to do and it failed to do it? What happened here? Well, could it be that the word scenes is all caps? Well, on Linux, yeah, maybe. On Windows, it shouldn't matter. Okay. Anime SL. Ah! So what it did, yes, it did, I'll bet you it did what one could argue is actually about the stupidest thing possible. Yep. What's the stupidest possible thing the software could do? Well, it is to have as a convention of the tool that if you put in plus here in the location, plus means that the default folder that is within the Tahoma project is referred to. So the default is plus output. I know that I've done this actually more than 100 times before, where the word plus scenes was part of the file name, and it worked. So I can't remember what I'm doing wrong here. But what it did, what Tahoma did, was it said, well, you put plus scenes, you must not mean the folder called scenes. You must mean create a new folder inside of the project. So now I've got a folder called scenes, and I've got another folder called plus scenes. There you go. Well, all right. Am I being snarky when I say that's like as stupid as possible? I don't really think so, friends. I think that's really probably about as stupid as possible. Yeah, that's what we wanted. We wanted to have a new folder called, and then it doesn't want to let me delete the folder, because when it creates a folder, it gives it freaking admin permissions. Okay, like I said, because look at down here. There it is, scenes. Okay, so is it that? Sometimes, I'm sorry, guys, but when I come across this type of stuff, it just blows my mind. It's like, really? We're that dumb? Yep. And this has been, in other words, what does this tell you? It tells you that statistically there's no one on the planet Earth that's actually using Tahoma 2D to do much animation. Why do I say that? Because 100 people, 1,000 people would have come across this comically ridiculous error, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Okay, so one thing I want to look at in this nonsensical folder that was created, and again, I kind of apologize that today is a bit of a rant day, but it created the folders properly, which is a good thing. It just created them in the wrong containing folder. Now, my question here is, what did it do with the file names? It looks to me like it did, in fact, insert a period. Okay, so now I'm going to go rename. I'm going to just check. Okay, there's only one period there, and there's only one period there. Okay. Now, when I go back here, it does appear to me that Tahoma did the sensible thing, which is remove the period that I put in there, because I thought maybe I needed to have it in there. Apparently, I don't. So now we've changed this to lowercase. And we know that the episode-03 folder is correct. Will it render to the right location? It looks like it did. Okay, so now I know what's going on. Originally, Tahoma, its origins are in Linux, actually. And this is a case where, even though the Windows operating system makes no distinction between upper and lowercase in file names or folder names, Tahoma does. So by putting scenes in uppercase, Tahoma said, oh, you don't want to go in the default scenes folder, which is indicated by the plus sign. What you want to do is you want to create a new folder called plus scenes, all caps. Okay, that seems pretty dumb to me, but I can understand the mindset behind it. Okay, so that's fine. So now what we do is, on my other screen, drag this down here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to episode 3, and we should see there 310B. And actually, this is a mistake on my part. This is a mistake. There's supposed to be a subfolder called render. There's always supposed to be a subfolder called render. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm not going to create that folder. What I'm going to do is go back into the output settings and add it. So there's the scene. And we'll call this render. I don't care if it's uppercase or lowercase. Just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to deliberately fail to put a trailing slash on that path name, just because I want to see what happens. It went by too quick because there's not enough frames to render. Okay, let's go back into here. So I hope you guys love housekeeping. Okay, that worked perfectly. So that's what we need to do. So at this point, until I can train Tahoma to know what my preference is, which would be, for this project, frankly, going forward, I'd want it to be in plus scenes / episode 3, or plus scenes / episode 3 /, and then I would add the folder name from there. But it did it as pings, so everything's good. Poof. All right. We can save everything, and the render settings will be baked in. Okay. So now we can see some really, really dramatic problems in my sketch, which are the result of, which are pretty much the result of sitting here fighting with Tahoma while trying to live stream, while trying to be artistic and creative and animate. I can kind of do 2 things at once, but 3, and it's pretty much a mess. Okay, so I actually may, okay, stop. I may wrap up the live stream here shortly because there have been so many bugs and things I've had to work around technically today that I'm mentally actually feeling pretty fried at the moment. Like I'm feeling really like I kind of want to break. But, you know, don't be a sissy pants there, Dave. Tough it out, man. Okay, for a bit. Okay, so as you can see, this actually again needs to be stretched down here, which means that perhaps I am once again, in spite of myself, gravitating towards making this whole bit too big again, but we'll see. Okay, so this would be here, and this is obviously way, I'm just going to delete it. It's so wrong that there's no words to describe how wrong it is. And of course, now I'm not drawing. Am I? I guess I am drawing. I thought I was using the selection tool. But yeah, once I start getting fried like that, it's like I'm not like doing my best work typically. Okay. Okay, so wait a second. Actually, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up and quit. Here's why. What I just did was quite ridiculous. We've got this shot where he's talking to this guy. We go to Vespar. We go back here where Tobias is looking straight at Vespar. He's looking straight at him. And then I come in here and I'm putting in the turn of the head that literally does not need to be animated at all. So what does that mean? That means every single thing I've done so far has been unnecessary. And that's not a great way to start here, folks. Start. Isn't that funny? Start. It's 10 o'clock and I've been streaming for how long? At least an hour. I'm looking all over my screen. I'm desperately trying to find, where does it tell me? I've been streaming for an hour and a half. I have been streaming for an hour and a half, and so far today, I have not yet started, let alone finished, a new shot. Now, it's not all bad, because obviously there's quite a bit in the editing mode that I've done, and I was able to correct some old scenes. And I should actually, say that last night, replacing some of the backgrounds and stuff was incredibly productive. It's basically been a pretty productive process since I started working on episode 3. But today has been one of those days where you're just, it was the first time that Krita blew up, for example. I was talking yesterday about how great it is that the latest version of Krita hasn't blown up even one time, and then today, what's it do? Yeah. So let's see if I can even draw Tobias. Can I even draw Tobias? I'm just going to kind of doodle here for a minute. I need to get back in the alpha zone and just where this work is fun, We want it to be fun. Okay, so Tobias's eyes are a little bit oriented down-ish. That's pretty good. We see the ridge of his nose here. It appears to me that this is all probably too high. That looks pretty good. Cool beans. So there's that. And he's got a little bit of a, a little bit of a wrinkle thing going on. And that's not too bad. That's actually a good rendering of Tobias. Okay. So let's get his hair in there, and then we can start thinking about his costuming and whatnot. But yeah, this is a better way to start, I would say. The thing I wonder is anybody learning anything from this? Is this actually helping anybody in any way, shape, or form? Or is it somehow, is it entertaining to listen to whatever the heck I'm ranting about today? Because I find it a little frustrating to dive in and I just feel like I'm kind of making a lot of mistakes and stuff, But there will be days like that. Mama said there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this, Mama said. Who was that? The Shirelles or something did that song? Okay. Certainly nobody's chatting today, that's for darn sure. Okay. So there's Tobias. Let's think about this. So now strategically, a smile's easy to do. The plastic tool would give us a nice turn of the head. So I'm actually thinking, let's go ahead and let this this pose, I think, is going to stand alone and carry the shot. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to copy this shot of Tobias and go in here and just paste it in as a like a color reference and stuff. So Chiziapo says, seeing the struggles and how they're overcome is important. I agree. I mean, if I was watching, that's what I would be interested in, for sure. Go around them, but also it makes me appreciate the final product. Yeah, because it isn't arrived at easily, man. I mean, it is not. It is quite a laborious bit of work. Okay, so I'm going to take this and actually just drag it down here, I think. Just so I've got a reference. Okay, he feels a little skinny here, doesn't he? But yeah, I mean, this is what you do. This, there's just stuff that kind of happens, and there we go. Okay, that's looking a little better. So now, would he be able to give a bemused smile, as it were? I think what I'm going to do the quintessential graying technique, meaning I'm going to create a vector shape around him. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so you talk about the mistakes and how they're overcome. What just happened? Simple. I created a vector layer and I simply forgot to hit the B key. That's it. Because I didn't hit the B key, nothing I drew got drawn. And that's too sloppy. I don't like that. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a layer behind this guy so that I can then use the plastic tool to test my idea for how this shot is going to work. So the first thing we'll do is turn this into gray like that. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, actually, let's just do the plastic tool on this layer right here. So I'm going to create a mesh. Done. Okay, and then I'm going to jump here into the schematic, and I'm going to take this layer here and also make it a child of the mesh. That way, when I use the plastic tool to manipulate that shape that I just drew, it'll also manipulate the drawing that's laid over top of it. Makes sense? So now we're going to build our skeleton, and I usually give myself at least a couple nodes that are free of the mesh so that I've got an anchor point to work from. Typically, you're going to want maybe a little more flexibility in the neck area, but in this case, because we have a clear edge here, that's probably not what we want to do. What we really want to do is keep this very simple, put a couple nodes out here that effectively lock the shoulders in place, and then the best way to test if what you think your rig, the best way to test if it's working like you hoped it would, is just to go into animate mode and start moving things around. Okay, so basically we've got about this much room. We've got about this much room to animate, which is suitable. That's perfectly fine for this shot. Okay, all I wanted was, and now if I wanted to make it a little more animated, as it were, no pun intended, what I would do is I would say, okay, so he's like this, and then he would go like that. So you'd see all of that up and down will give it a lot of life. Okay, so I'm going to go back into build skeleton mode, and for now we're going to delete the keyframe that I just made right there. Just clicked it and deleted it. Okay, I see a couple things here that need to happen. First of all, I want a little tighter structure here. That's crimping in a way that looks unnatural. So let's see if that helped. That's definitely better. Okay, so once again I'm going to delete this keyframe. So rigging wise, not too bad. Obviously you've got some symmetry issues up here in the hair, but I mean, technically this is a 3/4 view. I mean, it's really not. It's a front-on view, but arguably his head is turned slightly to the right. So what if I put in a node here and then give myself, just for fun, I'm going to give myself a little bit of sort of liquefy flexibility. Meaning, by doing what I just did, I could take this and just adjust it and actually fix the symmetry problem. And then if I move this, of course, all those other nodes are going to get dragged along. Okay, and what I would say is the one thing that's missing, excuse me, I would say is this. I think a node here is probably prudent for the reason that when I turn his head, I would like to be able to pull this in a bit. Okay, and it did not work. Just so you guys know, that did not work. That's in the wrong place. Okay, so we got to go back here. This probably needs to be more like here, and it could be that we really need actually to give it a little more real estate. Yes. Okay, so that's better. Let me get rid of this keyframe. You know, it's worth taking 5 minutes to make sure the rig is working properly. So you're not wasting a bunch of time on futility. So this turns this way, this would come in slightly, is what I'm thinking. Something of that nature. Okay, so for now, let's kind of test that by taking this, moving it, okay, moving it down here, then going back up to here, and keep distance. I guess what we should do is go like that. Just see if it's moving properly. And oh, as luck would have it, I don't know if this is because of the onion skins or what, but as luck would have it, oh, I see why. I can see the reason. This needs to be, hello, this needs to be dragged down to here. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. And if he's going to do that, then probably he's going to settle a bit, like that. Just a little bit of a settle. Just a little bit. Okay, let's run that. Nope, 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 nope. This is way, way, way too much. Like, way too much. Let's turn the onion skins off. Yeah, the plastic tool is pretty interesting in that if you can get the settings right, it's kind of your best friend, and if you can't get the settings right, you can sit and fiddle all day and it'll never quite look right. But that's not too bad. I think we can work with that. Obviously the voiceover or the lip sync will be overlaid, you know, over top of this. Okay, so for our purposes, let's just go to another layer. B key, boom, and let's ink this guy. This can be turned down. Okay. Did I just turn down the wrong column? I'm quite sure I did. Yes, so this can be turned down. And okay, let's just be cool here. Let's be cool. This is the kind of thing that makes me want to claw my own eyeballs out. Okay. That's twice now. I'm looking at my interface and I'm going, okay. I clicked on this column and I went to change the opacity, and it looks like it did change it, and for some reason, and the reason might be obvious to somebody out there, but for some reason it is not showing up here. The transparency that I just Look, that's the pencil test, right? That's the correct column. What I was about to rant about was the fact that I did this twice, and every time I clicked away from it because it wasn't working, it was column 6, at least the second time. It was column 6 that was selected. And it's like I never clicked on column 6. Anyway, so obviously I've got the right level here because otherwise the pencil wouldn't turn off. However, when I turn down the opacity of the column, the opacity is not affected at all. Why is that? Good question, guys. I have literally no idea. I suspect the reason has something to do. So we talked earlier about some of the, like the transform mask. In other words, the ability to do an animated transform with keyframes in Krita is buggy as hell. It's always been buggy as hell. It's one of the things that will break and crash the program, like, all the time. Well, in Tahoma, the arena that I found to be the buggiest and the weirdest and the creepiest, like, what the heck were they doing, is what you're seeing right here. Once you invoke the plastic tool, weird shit starts happening related to transparency and compositing. You'll have a shadow that's 80% transparent, 20% opaque, and then when you render it, it'll render completely black. When does this sort of completely ridiculous problem come up? It seems to come up most of the time when you're dealing with transparency on the one hand and the plastic tool on the other. So, is there a fix? I think there is. The fix would be temporarily, since what we're doing is we're trying to create one nice drawing of Tobias. It is worth saying parenthetically right now that to have simply pilfered this picture of Tobias probably would have made more sense than what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm creating another picture of Tobias that looks principally exactly the same as the one that was already there, which is kind of dumb. But this has been an educational exercise. Here's what I'm doing. In the schematic, I am taking these two layers, the pencil test and what's going to be the ink and paint, and I've just disconnected them from the mesh. So the plastic tool mesh animation will no longer affect those levels. That's fine. I don't need it to affect them because all I'm trying to do is create one really good drawing that then gets animated. So, do you notice something here, friends? Do you notice that all of a sudden the transparency on this column is working now? Why in the world the plastic tool would change the compositing it's a mystery. So, you know, someday maybe we'll know the answer to the mystery. There's something in the code, and unfortunately when you're, you know, I am a pretty competent C++ programmer. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm trying to really get a lot of work done here animating, I probably would go dive into the Tahoma 2D code and try to figure out what the hell's going on, because it's a silly problem to have. It shouldn't be happening. But there it is. All right, so now let's go B key. This might be one of those cases where playing around with oh, I'm having a hard time talking and drawing at the same time. Sorry, guys. Symmetry. Playing around with the symmetry would be interesting. One thing I noticed the other day, I find this decidedly non-intuitive, and there may be something important that I'm missing, okay? But this is what I noticed. If you go into these overlays, you think about what is this icon doing? What is this? Okay? What is its purpose? Its purpose is to put overlays over the screen that give you guidance, like you see here, the rule of thirds, for example. That's what this is for. So, I found it to be quite non-intuitive to say that one of the things you can choose to see is the symmetry guide. What I didn't know was that just by choosing to see the symmetry guide, all of a sudden your drawing is symmetrical. So again, if Darren was here, Darren T, he could probably shed some light on this. But the way it works, as far as I've been able to see, is this turns it off or on. This chooses what you see when you turn it on, and then there's an extra catch here. And the catch is, if you want to see the symmetry guide, you also are about to discover that whether you meant to or not, you're drawing with symmetry. Which means the turning off and on of symmetry seems to me disconnected from probably where it should be in the interface. But worse, I didn't know this until a couple days ago, is that it appears that with Tahoma, symmetry is nice, but it only works if you're going to be symmetrical across the center of the screen. Like in Krita, you can put the line of symmetry wherever you want based on what you're working on. So it does not, at a glance, appear to be as useful as Krita's symmetry tool, but, it's better than not having it at all. What we used to have to do in the old days was you would do a pencil test like this, and what you would do is you would create a second layer and actually flip it. You would transform it and flip it, and so then you would draw on one side and it would show up flipped on the other, and so that's how you would simulate a symmetry tool, and it worked. The catch was you now have a symmetrical drawing that's actually based in two separate levels, and then what you need to do is when you do your ink, the symmetrical was for the purpose of knowing where to put the ink, So there really wasn't a way to do symmetry with the ink itself, actually. Back then, I won't get into why that's actually true. It had to do with the fact that there's not really an intelligent way to do a fill operation that's traversing two different levels at the same time. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is the truth. It's the truth, my friends. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep a feel here. I would say, looking at the reference of Tobias, I would say this is too high. That looks better. B, which would mean his mouth's going to be somewhere like here. Okay, I'm just going to put in an indication of it. Okay. And it definitely helps to flip your screen. Save early, save often, and flip early, flip often is good policy. Good policy, friends. Let's see. Okay. So this is going to be, okay, this can be open because the beard and the hair are going to be the same color. So I don't need to worry about closing this. In fact, it's better if I don't, actually. It'll look more delicate if it's not closed, and it'll allow the fill operation to basically bleed through. This down here, on the other hand, this needs to be closed. Okay, this probably is looking okay. M key, hello, M key, B key. I'm not sure what I just hit there. I must have hit the wrong key in the background. Okay, Tobias starting to appear before our eyes. So some astute observers will notice that I'm not really using a quote-unquote ink brush for the quote-unquote ink. I've been using, I'm just kind of going for that anime look, basically, is the gist of it. Let's hit the N key. Yeah. It just looks a little more, as I say, delicate. And certainly the last shot I did, I liked the way it came out. Visually, it looked really good. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I see somebody just posted something in the comments, so I'll go check it out here in half a second. Oh, hey, Art, or I mean Amar. I did that the other day. I called you, I meant Amar and I said Art.
Well, it's your own fault because you call yourself, well, Art.
So, what you been working on, Amar? What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Okay, so this this issue here is kind of not, I mean, you know, let's correct that. This is ridiculous, this mistake. Which, by the way, does mean I'm probably going to have to regenerate the mesh, but that's okay. So just so you guys know, if you build a skeleton for the plastic tool, you can go ahead and regenerate the mesh later. You don't have to rebuild the skeleton. So if anybody was wondering about that, now you know. Okay, am I flipped? No, I'm not flipped. So you still getting along up there in Chicago, Amar? Is that still your stomping ground? Okay, that was weird. Almost like a bit of a smoothing thing going on. Oop, that sucked. I guess I should turn my hand this way. I am having a devil of a time drawing that line. A devil of a time, I say. Cool. That's more like it. But yeah, there's something strange going on right now. I'm seeing a like a smoothing delay in my brush. It's almost like, yeah, it's very strange. It's like Tahoma's bogged down a little bit or something. Definitely a bit odd. Let's run that all the way to the bottom. Control Shift F. I have control, it might be a default hotkey, I'm not sure, but I have Control Shift F mapped to the fill check right here. Tells you instantly if you have closed shapes, so that you're going to be able to do fill operations without it leaking and filling up the whole, you know, the whole page. So now I suppose we should probably do something like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is we'll just use the blue for his eyes. So this is the whites of his eyes. I'm going to change it from blue to white here shortly. But I'm just using it to close these shapes so that I don't have to have a hard outline around the whole thing. Hopefully that will work, like so. And if you're the sort of noisy, grainy look of that, this is actual screen size. So in a nutshell, you're not going to see it on the screen. But if it really bugs you, and it is one of the downsides of having quote-unquote ink that's actually like a pencil type look, then what you can do is just hit the V key and just hand paint it in a little bit. Just do a little bit of hand painting. No big deal. Clean that up. There's other ways to attack it actually, but that's kind of a common one. All right, this would be, let's just call this hair right there. This is what I'm talking about. So you could say, well, this is where it's important too. You think about it this way. I'm doing the animation of the whole shot based on one drawing. So, you know, let's get that one drawing, you know, pretty spot on, right? Okay, so fill. Okay, undo that. Ooh, okay, so yes, right. Obviously, I didn't. Okay, so let's do it this way. I'm going to. I can see that Tobias's beard is. Well, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put some pencil lines over this to tighten it up and make it just look nicer, but basically I can create the border with the flesh tone. Didn't work, so it means we still have leaks. So again, I'm trying to be delicate here, trying to be a little soft with it, and it's going to be unforgiving when it comes to the fill operations. So that should probably do it, but it might not. Nope, still didn't. So we still have a leak here. So now what I can do is basically say, okay, fine. You're going to be difficult. Oh, I know what the problem is. You cannot use the V key. Okay, this is actually a great omission, I think, in Tahoma 2D, but it's something that should be mentioned. If there's some sort of workaround or alternative or something I'm missing, please feel free to chime in, folks. But here's the deal. If you use the V key, what OpenTunes calls the paint brush, which is distinguished from a brush. So a brush is what you draw with, and a paint brush is the V key. It's just a different tool, and it's used to basically supplement fill operations and whatnot. Okay, so I want to excuse me. It should be underall probably. What I was going to say is that just be aware, if I draw a line like this, like if I draw a shape like this, okay, stop everything. Why? I'm under all, and yet it's covering it. Okay, that does seem like a bug to me, but that's okay. Let's go back to overall just for kicks, but let's change lock alpha. Okay, so lock alpha is actually only going to paint the things that are already in there. So that means that under all, am I using the V key? Ah, I had pressed the B key. Okay, so what I wanted to illustrate is this. If I draw a closed shape with the V key, the quote-unquote paintbrush, what Tahoma calls, what the hell do they call it? The smart raster paint tool. I suspect when I hit the F key and fill this, it's going to fill his whole head like that. Now you could say, well, that's what you wanted to do. Well, yeah, ultimately that is what I wanted to do. But what I'm showing you here is that, shockingly, when you make a border with the V key, with the Smart Raster Paint tool, guess what? It does not create a border. It doesn't. You have to use the regular brush, hit the B key, to create the border, or it will not work. Pretty ridiculous, right? Seems crazy, like that's insane. When would that ever be a good idea? There may in fact be a reason why it's a good idea. So if you're out there and you know more than me, you know, maybe there's a reason why this makes sense. It's a little maddening though, because think about it. Number one, the brush doesn't really have the ability, like under all, literally doesn't work. Look at, it's not drawing under all, it's drawing over it. So that means under all doesn't work with the brush. So I can do fills. I can punch this up great with the V key with the Smart Raster paintbrush. with the caveat that it will not create any borders that will block a fill operation. On the other hand, I could create the border as I have to using the B key, the plain old brush, but then it's like, well, you got to be really careful at the borders because otherwise you'll overwrite your ink lines. So either way doesn't work, actually. Okay, so Amar's got a lot to say here, so I'm going to go ahead and take 1 minute and read through. Nothing going on, dude. What I would say is I did write 25 short stories, and that was the plan for a new channel. Okay, that's cool. 3-minute short stories. Huh. Yep, Chiziapa's got a split. Okay, did a talk with a childhood friend at the beginning of the year who wanted to get back to working on one of my projects 2 decades ago. Said he could help me produce the first short in live action. I'm still in Chicago. You have this month end well, so I can have the motivation to work on these projects. I come to the decision that I need to work smaller. Okay, cool. Hopefully it all works out well for you. Is there not a draw fill brush in Tahoma? Well, there is. That's what you have got 2 options. You got 2 options. You got the B key, which is a brush that paints over everything and creates borders. As I hit the fill tool, as you can see, it filled it perfectly. Or you can use the Smart Raster Paint tool, which is great because then it respects my ink lines. It doesn't respect my fill, obviously, but it does respect my ink lines, but it will not create a border. So, I mean, the kind of the rule is generally you really want to, if you're going to do ink lines, then you generally want to make sure your shapes are closed, right? That's always been true with animation. So, can't really complain too much. But I'm saying if the tool is for ostensibly filling in stuff, because if it wasn't, you would hit the B key. You wouldn't hit the V key. The only reason you would ever hit the V key is because you want to assist the fill tool, as far as I can see. Now, that's what I'm saying. If somebody knows something I don't know, where my understanding is kind of stupid, that's fine. Just let me know. I'd be happy to learn that I'm missing something obvious. Okay, so we're going to go and fill this in. Okay, so that did fill properly. We're good on that count. And we always were. None of this is a problem. I'm just pointing it out so you guys understand the kind of things you are going to bump into from time to time. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the R key, and I'm going to sample that color right there. That is actually Tobias's skin color, and it is kind of interesting to discover that there are a lot of spots that need to be touched up. And to tell you the truth, what usually happens is you get into this and you would swear that this skin color is like way too dark. There's no way this is the correct color. And basically sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. It'll always look wrong though until you put the background in. That's for sure. So we can sort of kludge it this way. We can just put a background underneath it. And as you can see, I'm just going to move that really close to there. And it isn't it creepy? I'm going to actually put this above it. It's just kind of wild. Well, that doesn't do me any good. Sorry. I'm just trying to be able to look. It looks to me like this color matches this color, not this color. So it's really kind of strange. But, again, the R key. Yeah, that color is that. So it kind of tricks your eye in a big way. But, so you can do something similar with the F key. Well, the F key is just the fill tool. I mean, it's just the fill tool. The paintbrush is a fill, which isn't a border for the fill tool. I know, which sounds kind of stupid, right? It does look to be a shadow tone. Like I said, this type of thing will fool you often. So let's just keep rocking with it here, folks. And let's do a fill there, 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 and there. Let's turn this back off for the moment. Well, no, actually, we need that on because we got to sample his hair color, don't we? So this is going to be the R key, and we want the mid-tone. Yeah, pretty weird because that one looks right. That looks right to me. If I take this out, I can probably see better if I'm being fooled by an optical illusion. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. It's true, you guys. It was an optical illusion. Completely. This is, in fact, the correct color. Isn't that crazy? That's just crazy, man. Fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to hit the B key here and kind of zoom in. And this may be where, let's see, this is set at 37. I want to see, okay, yeah. In this case, I wonder if we should actually make this just a little darker. But this shot is probably looking nastier than most, I must say. So today is one of those days where it's just like, what? It's one of those days where I'm not expecting to make very much progress because a lot of things have been a bit clunky, as you guys can see. And so I'm kind of giving up on the idea that I'm going to really make tons and tons of progress today. We do have, I think for now, let's just fill, okay, stop. Fill operation. Technically, there is another little part to this. Let's just stick with this for a while. Okay. Actually, let's do this, and instead of moving this around like that, let's put it in the background just so we have some sort of background. I'm going to scale this up a bit, and there we go. Okay, just something behind him that's kind of the right color. Okay, so he's got sort of steely blue eyes. And what I did say I was going to do is go to this and tighten this up. Okay, stop everything for a second. Stop. This is what I need to do. Whenever I run into something that's really baffling me, I always just completely stop everything. Why, I'm wondering, are we getting nice lines drawn over the gray, but really difficult to draw lines over? Okay, I see why. I know why. Okay, so this is another thing. Man, today is one of those days where every shortcoming of the software is just rising to the top today. It's just one of those days. Okay? It's got to do with the way that Tahoma deals with, I guess, Z ordering, really. Okay? It should be fairly obvious that what I'm trying to do right now is draw over the top of this stuff. What is happening is, because the software required me, per my earlier discussion, to use the brush, not the Smart Raster Paint tool, to create a border, the border resists being drawn over now. So when I draw this line, watch. Wherever it's just a fill, no problem. When I hit the pencil, when I hit the brush line, it's blocked. And the bizarre thing, and this has been true of OpenTunes and Tahoma for years, ever since OpenTunes was ever released in the first place, this has always been the case. It's something that's never been fixed. if I really, 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 really scrub over it really hard, oftentimes it'll actually break through. In this case, it looks like it won't, which is bizarre. Now, could it be because this color, no, this color is actually set to under all. I'm thinking, like, is there some characteristic? Is it like, was this set to overall and it's somehow remembering that? And so it's saying, well, no, you can't paint over me because this skin color is supposed to be overall, right? Okay. So I'm going to hit undo a million times. Let me see one thing here. I'm going to try something here that might be interesting. Nope. That's wild. Even if I use one of Tahoma's native brushes, I thought maybe because I'm using the my paint brushes, which I do prefer. Okay, so I just uncovered something interesting. The my paint brush actually is, let's just say it's stronger. This makes no sense, but it's true. Okay, so the my paint brush is biting through those flesh tone brush lines in a way that the regular native brush wouldn't. It's very strange. Seeing this struggle happen, obviously, I had a feeling if I looked over here that Amar would probably have 10 trillion things that he was saying. Lines and fills, yep. Wouldn't Blender, well, see, that's why I'm looking at whatever Amar said, because I knew that was what was coming. Wouldn't this other software be better? Wouldn't, you know, yeah. Kind of knew that was coming, Amar. And the answer is absolutely not. Why? Because if you go over to Blender, you're not going to have this problem. You're not. Definitely not. What you are going to have is other problems. Every time. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be challenges. I'm pointing them out. I'm trying not to be too ranty today. I'm not really actually complaining about it. I'm saying be aware this is what you're going to deal with. Now, to a degree, it's not a big deal. The nastiness we see here is not because of any problem with Tahoma. It's because I'm using essentially a pencil type brush for my ink lines, and I'm kind of paying for it. But that's okay. You know, that's my choice. I can go, if I want to take the time to go in and tighten it up like this, you know, that's my prerogative. So that's not a fault of the software at all. That's me choosing how I want my thing to look, and it requires certain compromises. End of story. Okay, now I'm going to hit the G key, sample this color back to the V key, and go ahead and tighten up these fills. You know, it's like I don't really mind taking a little extra time to do this when I know that if I can get it to look good, this one drawing is going to serve the whole scene because I'm animating it with the plastic tool. So it's just not that big of a problem. I really don't love getting on a live stream and struggling a ton. But I think Chizyapo, who's gone now, really did make a good point. It's very, very useful to see that. There's nothing about animation from the standpoint of the skill set and from the standpoint of the tools that are available. And I'm not just talking about open source tools. I'm talking about all tools. There's nothing about animation that's really easy or automatic or simple. It's everything comes with compromises of various kinds. So I'm using Tahoma because it's frankly been the least problematic tool in the toolkit lately. And I've been really liking the look I've been getting out of it. For whatever reason, this particular shot is struggling more than the previous ones. But, yeah, whoop-de-doo. That's life. Now once you get a dark background behind him, the occasional stray pixel, you won't see it because it'll be filled in with whatever's in the background. You just won't notice it. So it's not a big deal. I left his eyes the way they are because I wanted to consider putting the pupils in a different layer. So, N key. So that's not too horrible. We have 2 concurrent viewers. Have you tried using the freehand option when filling? Yeah, it does. Yeah, so Darren makes a great point. If you don't want to have the problem that you have with the pencil-based ink lines, or at least have a lot less trouble, you would do it this way. You would do, instead of doing a normal fill, you would do a freehand fill, and you would lasso the areas that you want to fill. And when you do that, it absolutely does a great job of filling in all the stray pixels. Like, watch this. Poof. See? So, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, Darren, because this is one of those scenes where, based on the way I'm drawing the guy, it probably would have been better to use the freehand option from the start. Oh, that's what you were referring to earlier. Okay. Right. So, anyway. Okay, just for kicks and giggles, I'd say, let's, I'm going to hook this. Is it only 1050? Wow. What a day, what a day, what a day. I'm going to reconnect these to the plastic tool. And let's just see how things are feeling. And, okay, there's the pencil test. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change these names. And I guess we'll call this Tobias. Okay. Go back here and just look at, here's the mesh. It might be in, yep, here's the problem. I didn't connect this. And HV is, oh yeah, that's the gray. We can leave that in there, that's no big deal. But yeah, I didn't have the correct layers connected to the plastic tool. Okay. I'm gonna say, I think it's time to quit. This is an example of a shot where there's kind of a lot of things that are going wrong for me personally in terms of my workflow and the way I like to operate. I feel like I'm working way too hard to dial in an approach because I committed to it, basically with the plastic tool early on, setting up the skeleton. I just don't feel like things have been done in the right order here. And I'm getting tired because I've been streaming for a couple hours, and my brain is starting to get fried. And when that happens, what actually happens is I'm sort of anxious to get it right and finish. And the thing I'm seeing here for sure is that, at the very least, this plastic tool animation is wrong. It's distorting his head too much, and that might not have been obvious when I just had the pencil test in there. Now that it's inked, it's very clear. What might not be the worst idea ever, though, is, yeah, what I really want to do is actually create the mesh from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume rebuilding my skeleton is no big deal. And I think what I'll do is let's just create the mesh based on this instead of all this other nonsense that got me here. It's probably going to be a lot cleaner. So let's do it. Let's hit the X key, create the mesh. That's good. Let's go boom. We'll put in a couple anchors here. This can go here. So we're going to sort of lock this region. We are probably going to want to have a little bit of flexibility here. And perhaps here. Nah, wait a minute. That should probably be more like there. Let me think about this. If this is controlling, excuse me, I'm going to actually go into animate mode and just check this really quick. Keep the distance. I just want to make sure this is okay. It is okay. but it's not quite right. What we really want is a node there, and I'm going to say put one there as well. Yeah. So today is one of those days where I'm starting to move fast, hoping things will work, and they're not working at all. So it's probably best to take a break and forget it for at least a while. I may be back at it later today, but that's clearly not working at all. And it is the way it is. Now this, quite interestingly, may be kind of close. Yeah, it is close. But I think these extra nodes, excuse me, sorry, these extra nodes are actually causing trouble. If you were going to have them in there, it would have made probably more sense to actually have them attached to this. So they're bringing the hair along with it, but that's going to probably create its own problems. Again, probably a case where, just animate the thing. So that is kind of interesting, isn't it? The way it makes the shoulders shift their orientation. But unfortunately, not actually useful for what I'm trying to do here. So that's it. And I am going to call it a day. And thanks for hanging out, guys. This has been a fairly modestly productive session. But it's been probably the first day I've had since I've been back at this where the software has been kind of messing with me at every freaking turn. Because Krita was nothing but trouble at the start. It crashed for the first time today. Yada, yada, yada. So anyway, that's it. I'm done. I quit. And I'm sure I'll be back sometime. So you guys have a good day. And